Adaora Okafor was the envy of Lagos. As a respected lawyer married to Obinna, a charismatic real estate mogul, her life appeared flawless. They were the couple everyone wanted to know: beautiful, successful, and wealthy. Behind the shimmering facade, however, Adaora felt a hollowness creeping in. Obinna's charm, which had captivated her years ago, now often came across as controlling, and their moments of affection grew few and far between. They hosted dinners, attended galas, and posed for magazine covers, but at home, they were strangers. Adaora's independence clashed with Obinna's need for control, and each felt a growing resentment toward the other. Yet they both understood the cost of separation: their reputation, business connections, and high society standing. So, they kept up appearances, each one playing the part to perfection. One evening, as Adaora prepared for yet another social event, a letter arrived from her hometown in Edo State. Her father, Chief Okafor, had fallen seriously ill, and the family wanted her to come home. It had been years since she'd visited the village, choosing to stay immersed in Lagos life. But something in the letter stirred an unexpected longing within her, and despite her reluctance, she knew she had to go. When she informed Obinna, his disinterest was immediate. "Can't they handle it without you?" he asked coldly. He'd always dismissed her village roots, seeing them as a reminder of the life they had left behind, a life he wanted no part of. Adaora felt a pang of sadness at his words, but masked it with a polite smile. Within days, she was on the road, returning to a place she barely remembered. As her car wound through the dusty paths and past familiar farmlands, memories flooded back: her childhood, the warm smiles of her family, and her oldest friend, F. She wondered if he still lived there. Little did she know, this journey would reveal secrets buried deep in her family and ignite a chain of events that would turn her life upside down. The village was exactly as Adaora remembered: quiet, with red clay roads winding through dense trees and humble homes. Children chased one another, laughing freely, while the elders sat in clusters, exchanging stories under the sun. Adaora felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in years, simple peace that life in Lagos had never given her. Her father's compound was crowded with relatives and well-wishers. Inside, she found her father lying on a bed, looking frail but managing a proud smile as he saw her. "My Adaora," he whispered, his eyes glistening with tears. They shared a quiet moment, exchanging few words but much unspoken emotion. Later, her father's friend and the head of the village council, F, visited. Adaora hadn't seen him in years, and she was surprised by how much he'd changed. F had matured, his once boyish face now hardened with wisdom. They talked about the village, her father's health, and how much had changed since she left. Adaora felt a pull toward him, a reminder of the close friendship they once shared. As they walked through the village that evening, F revealed something startling. Her father had made a pact years ago with the family of another village chief, a pact to unite their families. He explained that, according to village tradition, this alliance was to be fulfilled through marriage. "Your father sacrificed much for the family's name," F said carefully. "His status here was built on it." Adaora's heart pounded. The realization struck her. Her father's legacy in the village wasn't just about his personal success but rested on ancient, unbreakable promises. Disturbed, Adaora asked F who the pact was with and what it meant for her. F looked at her silently, then turned away, leaving her with more questions than answers. "Some things are best left in silence," he finally said. Returning to her father's bedside, Adaora felt her past and present colliding. She sensed that what she'd uncovered was only the beginning of a buried truth that would shake the very foundation of her life. Returning to Lagos, Adaora couldn't shake the weight of what she'd learned in the village. Her father's legacy, her family's honor, all seemingly tied to an unspoken agreement made decades ago. But there was more. F's words echoed in her mind, hinting at a hidden reality she hadn't yet uncovered. She resolved to find out the full truth, no matter the cost. Once home, Adaora sensed something was wrong. Obinna was distant, more agitated than usual. avoiding eye contact and shuffling around the house. His coldness stung, but she decided to confront him about it later. The next day, as she prepared for work, a strange envelope arrived on their doorstep. Inside were photos of Obinna with another woman and, shockingly, a young boy who looked about 10 years old, an unmistakable resemblance to Obinna. Adaora's heart dropped. She hadn't wanted to believe the rumors she'd occasionally heard, dismissing them as the jealous whispers of Lagos socialites. But here was the proof. Her husband had a child with another woman, a family he had hidden from her all these years. Rage and betrayal swirled within her, but so did an odd clarity. Determined to confront him, she waited until evening. When Obinna arrived, she showed him the photos. His face went pale, and he stammered for an explanation, eventually admitting the truth. He'd fathered a child with someone else years before their marriage, and kept it hidden to protect his reputation and business. As he scrambled for excuses, Adaora pressed him further. "Who sent these photos?" she demanded, her voice cold. He admitted he didn't know, but he had his suspicions. Someone had been sending him anonymous threats and warnings, hinting they knew everything about him. The revelation struck her like a thunderbolt. She immediately thought of F and his cryptic warnings back in the village. Had he been the one who exposed Obinna's secret? Adaora's mind raced. She was trapped between two men, a husband who betrayed her and a childhood friend, who seemed to be manipulating her life from the shadows. Confused and furious, Adaora felt betrayed not only by her husband but also by F, her childhood friend. The idea that F might be manipulating her life left her feeling exposed and vulnerable, as though the people she trusted most had turned against her. She resolved to confront F, desperate to understand why he would try to sabotage her marriage. Arriving back in the village unannounced, she went straight to F's home. He seemed unsurprised to see her, as though he'd been expecting this visit. She held up the photos, her eyes blazing with anger. "Was this you, F? Did you send these to destroy my marriage?" F's expression softened, but he didn't deny it. "Yes, Adaora. I thought you needed to know the truth. I couldn't bear to watch you live a lie, tied to a man who doesn't respect or deserve you." His words hit her like a slap, and she felt a mixture of betrayal and guilt. Had he done this out of friendship, or were his motives deeper? He went on, confessing that he'd harbored feelings for her since they were young. He'd hoped that someday she'd return to the village, maybe even to him. Seeing her with Obinna, in a life built on secrets, had driven him to reveal Obinna's betrayal, hoping it would push her to leave. Stunned, Adaora felt torn between gratitude and resentment. F's intentions, though seemingly genuine, felt tainted by his own desires. She realized that both Obinna and F had shaped her life for their own purposes, leaving her feeling trapped between their ambitions and expectations. "F," she said, her voice trembling, "you don't get to decide what's best for me. You've both lied to me, thinking you knew what I needed. But you're no different from Obinna, controlling my life from a distance." Adaora left his home feeling a new resolve. She wouldn't be a pawn in anyone's game, not Obinna's, not F's. For the first time, she was ready to reclaim her life, free from the shadows of betrayal and expectations others had placed on her. Back in Lagos, Adaora felt a calm she hadn't experienced before. The weight of other people's expectations had finally lifted. She knew what she had to do, and it wasn't about saving her marriage or rebuilding trust with F. This was about finding herself, something she'd lost in the roles of wife, daughter, and friend. She had a choice to make, one that only she could own. Obinna tried to make amends, desperate to salvage what was left of their marriage. He apologized profusely, promising to cut ties with the woman and child he'd hidden from her. But as Adaora listened, she realized that his pleas weren't about love. They were about control, about saving his image and his empire. For years, she'd bent to fit his world, but now she saw that he would never truly respect her or let her be free. Meanwhile, F reached out as well, expressing regret for his actions. He admitted that his love for her had clouded his judgment and acknowledged that his interference had been selfish. "I wanted you to come back here, to this life, To me, he confessed, but I see now that I was wrong. You deserve to choose freely. For the first time, Adaora felt the power of true choice. She returned to her village one last time, standing before her father's grave. She whispered her final goodbyes, promising to honor his legacy in her own way, not by marrying into a family for a pact, but by strengthening her community through her own values. On her way back to Lagos, Adaora made her decision. She filed for divorce from Obinna, opting to leave behind the life they'd built on empty foundations. And though she cherished her memories with F, she refused his advances, understanding that she needed space to grow without being bound to anyone else's desires. In the end, Adaora stood on her own. Free from expectations, she found peace in building a life of her own design. A life not shaped by betrayal or duty, but by her own strength and choices. As she gazed at the horizon, she felt, for the first time, truly whole.